We talking about sports, get ball.
What it do, baby? Yeah.
What it do, you number one podcast listeners? You have tuned in to a brand new edition of the number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee. I'm your host, Premal, and today I am joined by my guy, Thomas Lewis. Welcome, Thomas.
Hello. Happy to be here, as always.
Yes, this is our, it's becoming an annual thing. I'm going to make it annual, our NFL draft preview episode. And the last few years I've had you on because you are my go-to with scouting expertise. So you really know your stuff. So I figure this is as good of an opportunity as any for our number one podcast listeners to be put on game for before the NFL draft rolls around.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because a lot of like people I talk to are like, "Oh, you really know your stuff," and I'm like, "There's nothing I do that any other functioning sociopath can't do. You just have to be deeply fucking dedicated to the most mundane shit. Like if you're cool watching Central Michigan football games for 6 hours, like you could do what I do. Like there's nothing special about it. You just have to be willing to, not work out, gain a bunch of weight, let your whole self-care go. But it's not as hard as it seems. But I am happy to be the one person that is getting fat for everybody else's benefit.
It's a sacrifice that, me and the number one podcast listeners really appreciate out of you.
That's the real skill. The sacrifice is the skill.
Exactly. What's tougher, what you're doing or these guys working out and trying to do drills in their underwear? I mean, I would argue
I'm going to honestly say it's me because there's no, $50 million contract waiting for me somewhere. So I'm going to say the sacrifice I make is tougher than the It's like people are like, oh, when someone wins an Emmy or something, like, oh, he worked so hard. I'm like, he got paid like $3 million to play pretend in a movie that somebody else came up with. Like, none of these people deserve shit. Like,
someone else wrote it. Someone else directed the camera angles, everything.
Yeah, he literally just showed up, said words someone else told him to do, and they're like, what a performance. Like,
on that note, you number one podcast listeners, a note from our sponsor, which appropriately is from Sleepattle. You may know something about Sleepattle.
I do. I'm vaguely familiar.
This episode of Prem Brulee is sponsored by Sleepattle, a content creator, photographer, and artist based in Asbury Park, New Jersey. From cinematic stills, unique and classic wedding and elopement photos, even product or commercial photography like you see for the Prem Brulee brand, Sleepattle is a full-service studio, and stay tuned for their film Please Laugh coming very soon. So visit their Instagram at Sleepattle, that's SLEEPATTLE, and give at Please Laugh Film a follow while you're at it too. All right, you number one podcast listeners. We have made it to the NFL Draft Preview edition of Prem Brulee. As you know, the NFL Draft fast approaches, so I want to do right by you and bring in the expert to answer your questions, answer my questions, and get you ready for the NFL Draft so you can pretend to know more than the person sitting next to you claims to be an expert. So,
It's the pretty boys versus
without
the petty
further ado,
boys.
Thomas, let's have at it. We'll start with yeah, fam, or nah.
I'm in. I love this. This is the best part of the show.
Let's go. Okay. This edition, obviously, of the NFL Draft Preview is a little different for you number one podcast listeners. Just before we get started, it'll be heavy on the who you got because that's where all your questions come in. So we got a short first couple sections, and then we'll hit all the questions for you to answer, Thomas. Anyway, back to yeah, fam, or nah. I wanted to do a little intro for the NFL Draft and then get a few of your overall thoughts on it. So, the NFL Draft is coming up here April 27th through the 29th. It is taking place in Kansas City this year.
So dumb. It's like the worst city.
Your boy, Cincinnati Bearcat Travis Kelce's even throwing a music festival that weekend.
Also stupid, but it's like it's so. Why would he do it that weekend? Like, all right, continue.
Anyway, okay. So as many of you know by now, the top five are the Panthers, who traded into the number one pick. We discussed that last episode. The Houston Texans at number 2. Lovie Smith sends your regards for not being number 1. The Arizona Cardinals are number 3. The Indianapolis Colts are picking at 4, and the Seattle Seahawks are picking at 5. And that is obviously the Broncos pick, which they got for Russell Wilson. Day 1, as has been going on the last couple of years, is on Thursday the 27th. Day 2, then that'll cover just round 1. Day 2 is Friday night and covering rounds 2 and 3. And then day 3 is Saturday, covering the rest of the draft, rounds 4 through 7. The most picks are held by the Houston Texans and Las Vegas Raiders. They each have 12 picks in this year's draft. The fewest picks are the Miami Dolphins. They have just 4 selections. As far as multiple first-round picks, you have the Houston Texans, the Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, and Philadelphia Eagles. They're all picking more than once in the first round. Also notable, kind of goes along with the Dolphins having the fewest picks. They forfeited their round 1 pick, so there are just 31 selections in this year's first round. So don't be alarmed when you see one fewer selection on that Thursday night. As far as nice segue, no first round picks to go along with those teams that have multiples. The Cleveland Browns, the Denver Broncos, the Los Angeles Rams, the San Francisco 49ers, and the aforementioned Miami Dolphins have no first-round picks. So unless they trade back in, those fans are probably starting to tune in on Friday. The top 100 picks, the teams with the most picks in that top 100, presumably the top 100 prospects, they'll have their chance at. The Lions, Seahawks, and Texans each have 5 picks in the top 100. So quite the haul that those teams will be able to get. 2 of them were borderline / playoff teams, so they're going to be able to revamp their teams even further, and the Texans definitely need that many picks.
Yeah. All 3 of those teams traded away their franchise quarterback, though.
Crazy. That is a wild coincidence.
Great.
Yeah, that's how they got the picks, and honestly, it's like very worth it. It's extremely worth it when you look at like the way they're set up. Look at the 3. Who would you rather be? Would you rather be in the Browns situation right now or the Texans? I'd rather be in the Texans because they have a shot to rebuild. The Seahawks or the Broncos? I'd rather be the Seahawks. And the Lions or the Rams? Super Bowl aside, right now I'd rather be the fucking Lions. So like, just keep trading your quarterbacks.
I know you've always been on that team, so you definitely have proof in this year's draft of it working. And then last but not least, the team with the fewest top 100 picks is the San Francisco 49ers. You could argue they've had a great free agency, somehow reloading their defense more. And we'll see what they do at quarterback. Looks like Brock Purdy it'll be his job to lose, despite them using an early pick on Trey Lance. Should have been Justin Fields, I maintain, but I digress.
I agree.
Anyway, so given all that, we wanted to give you a lay of the land before we get started into these specifics. I want to get your fam or not. This is a deep draft. Give us a broad overview how we're looking this year.
Nah. And people say it all the time. They're like, oh, next year's draft is deep or this year's draft is deep. No, there are guys legitimately who, like, every draft has about, let's say, 150 guys that are actually going to make any sort of impact on an NFL roster. Like 150 is like a very reasonable number. There's how many picks now? It's like it's over 256 now, I think. But there's however many picks there are now, and I'd say a little more than half of them are actually going to have any impact. And it's random. Every single draft has exactly the name. So when someone says, "Is this a deep draft?" the answer is no. There's no such thing as a deep draft. There's really no draft where there's like 200 guys that are going to contribute. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where like you need a complete perfect storm for that to happen, and this isn't it. In terms of like elite prospects, are there multiple elite prospects? Also, no. I think that when I think of a deep draft, I think of there's a stud at every position. There's like a guy that's blowing away the competition at every position. This draft doesn't have that. It's not a deep draft.
Got it. More on those later, especially the elite part of it and position by position breakdown. We're here for the people. So, and we'll also link a nice little mock draft of yours and do our thing with your top 50 board for the people so they can get a look at how you ranked the prospects. Okay. Before we hit a quick you played yourself, I got a couple quick ones for you beyond this. Now that the first two picks are presumably going quarterback, some combination of Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, the eyes seem to be turning towards the number 3 pick held by the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they have Kyler Murray and want to stick with him despite him being hurt. So, yeah, fam or nah, the Cardinals should trade pick number 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I most teams should trade down. That's just the way the value of having the most players works. And like, if the Panthers trading up makes sense, but like the Texans should trade down. You know, the Cardinals should trade down. Ideally, the Panthers never should have traded up in an ideal world because they would have had a trade down partner. Look, the Bears just got first overall and traded down. Doesn't matter quarterback or not. Every single team wants to trade down. There's probably about 20 teams that want to trade down and only 5 that want to trade up. And that's really where the fine lines get drawn because, you know, a team like, say, you know, just hypothetically, the Jaguars want to trade up and they're like, okay, we want to trade up to 12 to get the Texans' second pick, that the one they got from Cleveland, but they want X. Or, you know, do you think we could trade up to 16 and get that? All those teams are willing to trade down and take that call. So the Cardinals absolutely should trade down just for the sake of, unless you're getting one of those guys that's like a can't miss prospect, you should be trading down.
I dig it. Okay. And last but not least, I wanted to cover a little bit of news and wrap it into yeah, fam or nah. Big news out of the free agency front. Odell Beckham Jr. finally signed with the team. The Baltimore Ravens signed him to a 1-year deal worth up to $18 million. I believe it's $15 million guaranteed. Obviously, the Ravens have been in the headlines for the saga with Lamar Jackson. Yeah, fam or not, with the signing of OBJ, Lamar Jackson is staying in Baltimore.
Yeah, I'd say he was always going to stay. I don't think it happens until the draft or until right after the draft, just because the Ravens are the one with leverage here. So I don't see themselves giving away leverage necessarily. I do think that the Ravens played it perfectly. They let him go on the market, let him request a trade. Ray Lewis requested a trade from the Ravens. People don't remember that. You know what? Can you name the teams Ray Lewis played for in his career? It's one. It's the fucking Ravens.
The Ravens.
So it's just posturing. It's all just posturing, and people were like, "Oh, now it's real." No. It's never real. He was always going to be a Raven. This all but confirms it. The only way I could see it not happening is if something crazy happens, like Anthony Richardson falls to that like 15 to 19 range, and the Ravens are probably like, you know, we get the same kind of value out of it.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I doubt that happens, but I don't think Odell signs without. I mean, you saw that they were FaceTiming and whatnot. It seemed like it was a planned move. He wanted to play with Lamar, so I think at the very least, Lamar plays on this franchise tag, and they get a year together, and then we'll see what happens. But
I don't think Lamar's playing on the tag.
You think he'll get a deal done?
Yeah, I think he's getting a deal done. There's no way he's playing on the tag. No way.
I wouldn't. If they can get somewhere in between, depending on how the draft rolls out.
If you're Lamar Jackson, odds are this is just like your last contract anyway. And I think a lot of this is people are like, oh, it's not the high average he wants. That's like I think he's tried making that very clear. Lamar Jackson is a actually very intelligent human being. Despite his incoherent tweets and his, not hiring an agent and things like that, just being an eloquent speaker or public addresser, whatever you want to call it, doesn't mean you're not intelligent. He's a very intelligent guy. He's made it clear, to me at least, and to, other people I've talked to, especially I have some salary cap guys that I'm friends with that are like, this is what he wants. He wants a longer deal. He doesn't care if it's $20 million a year. If they could give him that for whatever, he wants a very long. He wants a long deal. He doesn't want a 5-year, $30 million deal, with $150 million guaranteed. He was like, he will take he'll take 8 years at a discount. You know, I could see him taking 8 years, $30 million, fully guaranteed or whatever, because that's it. He's done. You know what I mean? Right. And he doesn't have to worry about getting cut, getting another contract. So I think the Ravens are going to basically say, like, do we really want to pay this guy for, let's say it's 6-7 years at $40 million? I mean, he's worth more. He's an MVP. But, you know, at $40 million, 7 years, what is that, $280 million? That's probably not a terrible deal right there.
No, that's less than Mahomes. Granted, Mahomes won Super Bowls. Like, I realize that, but that's the price of the market right now. And by the time he gets even in the middle of that contract, the average value of quarterback contract is going to be way above that by then.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great deal for the Ravens, and fully guarantee it. Give Lamar his 280, and don't fucking, and they give him their like injury guarantees, all this. This isn't a salary cap episode. Don't bullshit it. Put it in the fucking escrow. That's his money. Let him take loans against it. None of that shit.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, we'll see how that plays out. I'm interested to see what happens in the draft. You know, more on working things out in the draft. But interesting enough, I was looking back at our notes from last year's draft preview, and all the rumors were around, you know, Kadarius Toney and Deebo Samuel, of all people, being traded around the draft. And then out of nowhere, it was A.J. Brown. So that movement in the draft is always a surprise. Yeah. Kind of wild. Anyway, let's move on to You Played Yourself. Let's hit that You Played Yourself intro, baby.
I'm petty as hell.
And
I'm super petty.
here we
Petty Le Pew.
go.
That's right, you number one podcast listeners. We have You Played Yourself. Now, I know you came here for the spiciness, but this is the NFL draft preview. I wanted to address all the questions you sent in for Thomas. So I got one quick one that fits the theme in the NFL right now. So You Played Yourself goes to YouTube TV. They announced their pricing for NFL Sunday Ticket. As you may or may not be aware, Sunday Ticket's contract with DirecTV ran out after this past season. So YouTube TV got the rights to that package. They released their prices just this week. It is going to cost YouTube TV subscribers $349 for the season, or if you bundle it with Red Zone, it's $389. I don't know anyone that buys it without Red Zone. If you do that option, you shouldn't. You should upgrade to the Red Zone. I'm just telling you right now. I don't know that there is anyone like that wouldn't use Red Zone, but it's the best thing ever. Now, there is early bird pricing that's $100 cheaper. So you YouTube TV subscribers, you could pay $249 if you purchase before June 6th, or $289 for the Red Zone version. Now, folks that are non-YouTube TV subscribers, it's going to run you a little bit more. For the NFL Sunday Ticket minus Red Zone, that's going to be $449 for the season, or $349 if you register early. For the Red Zone version, it's $489, or if you do it early before June 6th, $389. That is pretty significantly more from the DirecTV price. So get out your pocketbooks or your bootleg websites. I don't know. That's pretty pricey to me. Ultimate, You Played Yourself to the type of streaming that's supposed to be like for the people. That doesn't seem very for the people to me. Obviously, they have bills to pay, but that
do you
is
watch?
Quite, it was.
Do you watch a lot of Sunday Ticket, or are you just a Red Zone guy?
I watch more Red Zone, but I do use.
Well, you know, just because they didn't put this out there and people don't realize, adding Red Zone to a YouTube TV subscription is only $10.
You think they'll still have that option?
It's available right now. They have to bake it in for a year.
Well, that's the way to go.
That's the way to go. $70 a month. You use it as your cable. You get Red Zone. You don't get Sunday Ticket at all. That's like, you know, some people are like, getting Sunday Ticket's now going to have like really cool things. Like, you can have you could build your own boxes effectively. You could be like, I want to watch these 4 games and like these 4 fantasy alerts, whatever. I'm sure they're doing cool stuff. It's never going to be worth $389 when if you want to cut your cable, You could just get YouTube TV, add the sports package. Now you're talking, what is it, $80 a month or $70 a month? It's only $10 a month extra. You're talking about $120 a year just for Red Zone. That's the only value here.
Yep. And highly recommend Red Zone. Like I said, if you haven't checked it out, it's incredible. The only way I get Sunday ticket, I mean, obviously I'm a Cowboys fan, so they're on national TV quite a bit. But if I were a fan of a team that doesn't get that love nationally and I'm not in the area, then I would maybe spring for Sunday tickets so I could watch my team every week. But
I was debating asking to switch your address because I was like, I wonder if the Bengals are the local team for him.
They're starting to be. Obviously, the
Cleveland,
Browns in Columbus kind of take the cake, but since the Bengals have been good, they've obviously gotten a lot more love over the last couple years, rightfully so.
Really quick, am I crazy or growing up with CBS AFC teams and Fox NFC teams, or did I just like imagine this shit?
No, you're absolutely correct because I was always used to the Cowboys being on NFC. They've started to loosen that.
Yeah, it's like crazy. Now I don't know.
Yeah.
I used to just like blindly know, but now it's a little. I always thought the home team was on CBS if they were in the AFC, and if they were in the NFC, the home team was on Fox.
I think you're actually spot on. That's how it used to be, but now the networks are starting to mix it up. So
yeah, and they're like
that just
drafting
happened.
Games.
I want to say that started last year even. So for the longest time, it was a given. You know, Cowboys fans, I was always defaulting to the NFC, Fox instead of CBS. But now it's a little bit hit or miss. Anywho, I wanted to mix in I still want to do a non-sports you played yourself. I've been enjoying adding my little quirks and pet peeves in here. So my non-sports you played yourself fits in from last episode's theme. I talked a little bit about airport fashion or lack of airport fashion. Also, you played yourself goes to the people that stand up right when the plane lands. I don't know what you're hoping to accomplish. Like you think
they're stretching their legs.
From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
I listened to this podcast with such ire because it felt like a hit piece on me. You should see my slob ass at an airport. It is disgusting. I am I'm in like whatever. I'm in socks and sandals. I am like in shorts. I'm a mess. I've got thin sweatpants on. Sometimes I unbutton them. It's a mess. I'm a mess.
I still prefer that. Prefer that to the jeans and blazer look.
That's true. But I stand before the plane lands. I want to be in the air for impact. And here's a fun fact about me.
That's pretty badass.
And some people, you could ask some people I've traveled with. I'm not going to name their names, but you can ask them. I don't wear a seatbelt on the plane. I don't do it. I've flown to Australia, which is about the longest flight you could do in the world. No seatbelt. I'm not wearing a seatbelt. Not doing it. It makes no sense. That if that plane is going through that turbulence, first I could just grab onto the arm seats. All right, I'm not a fucking loser. Two, if there's turbulence, I just grab on. I'm good. If that plane like hits the fucking ground, what is that seatbelt going to do for me? There is no way I'm sacrificing. So I am full board just being comfortable. Dressing as in any way, shape, or form in an airport is fucking insane. I don't know why these guys are doing it. I know some people are like, oh, they come from business meetings or they're landing and someone's picking them up. Fucking change, losers. Just change. How long does it take you to get dressed that you're like...
Just put the fucking blazer in your bag.
Yeah, just fucking change, you loser. Like, what do you think? You're going to meet the love of your life on a Spirit Airlines trip?
It's always those guys looking for upgrades, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
They're mad that they didn't get upgraded.
Yeah. I might be sitting, way in the back of the plane, but I'm dressed pretty business. So what do you think? Maybe we can just put me in that section, or I hate those.
Put on your seatbelt unless you're Thomas.
Yeah, those guys should buckle up. They're in for a wild ride.
On that note, let's get to the main event where I get to pick your brain and everything NFL draft. So let's move on to who you got, what you're feeling.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. this week we have questions from you, number one podcast listeners, and some sprinkled in that I have for you, Thomas. So without further ado, first up, we have questions from the number one podcast listeners. Will the Texans screw up and draft another backup center from a D2 school? Obviously tongue-in-cheek, but hit that Kawhi laugh. Texans fans down bad lately, but it's looking up like we talked about at the top of the episode, right, Thomas? Got tons of picks.
I actually like the Texans' position here. I don't, and to answer it directly, no, they will not draft another backup center from a D2 school. I think that there's the old brain trust is still there, but I do think DeMeco Ryans, and I think this is part of, he sued that team. People forget this. DeMeco Ryans sued the fucking Texans.
He sure did.
Yeah, and I think that part of him going there was basically like, I'm calling the shots. I don't care whose title is what. I'm calling the fucking shots for my team. And I think that Texans fans can kind of listen. The owner Bob McNair is never fucking firing that religious whack job. The guy that's basically from Waco. Like that guy's, I forget his name right now. He's a fucking loser.
Is it Nick Caserio?
Yes, Nick Caserio. That's the idiot. He was never firing him. That was never happening because then the optics are bad from firing him. I do think he's going to sit there, but no, they aren't going to draft another backup center from a D2 school. If anything, I'll go as far to say is I believe the Texans are in one of the best positions in the draft.
Oh, love that. Love that for the fam. Okay, next up on who you got is another question from number one podcast listeners. Is CJ Stroud truly ready to lead an NFL team? I added in day one because I assume that's what the number one podcast listener meant.
Day one, no. I just think that that's Ryan Day's fault. He does not develop these guys. It's also not his job to develop these guys for the NFL. I know a lot of Ohio State fans, yourself included, have their problems with Ryan Day. I don't think it's not his job to develop these guys to be good NFL prospects. That's not his fucking job. Like, what did Michigan actually get out of Tom Brady being the greatest quarterback of all time? Nothing. And they didn't even particularly get a boost in recruiting. So it's like, It's relatively nothing that you get from these guys being successful in the NFL. Out of it, getting them drafted is what's important. Getting them drafted is what helps recruiting. You don't see guys like post like, oh, we have, 8 guys that are starting in the league. They get drafted, and then their career is pretty much over if they're a bad guy. Like the Ohio State does not. Yeah, like Ohio State is not
still
out
up on
there
the wall
being
of fame.
Yeah, that's all that matters. So I don't think he's ready day one. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I don't think a lot of quarterbacks are ready day one. I'd say he's about where Jared Goff was coming out, where, yes, he can lead a team, but he would need the right people around him to do it.
Too bad news flashes. I don't think either of the first two teams are it.
Yeah, that's really the problem. And the Rams weren't it for Goff either. And then, look, he ended up going to a Super Bowl. And they're extremely similar prospects in the sense of if you could keep them upright, they're elite. They're elite. But if you can't keep them upright, they're functionally bad quarterbacks.
Right. All right. Well, more on QBs later, obviously, and we'll get your top 5 picks here in a second, too. Next up, with the Lions trading away Okudah, speaking of personally, you played yourself. I know you got me on this one. You were right on with Okudah. Unfortunately for Buckeye fans, didn't pan out in Detroit. He was traded away to the Falcons for just a 5th-round pick. Given that, it seems likely that the Lions were already kind of leaning cornerback as a possibility. If they are thinking corner, which one should they target?
Christian Gonzalez is the best cornerback in this draft. I think Devon Witherspoon. I think Witherspoon is a fantastic guy. His measurables are fucking tough in terms of his arm length. That stuff is bad. Like, there's never been a cornerback drafted that high with those bad of measurables, percentiles, and things like that. He's a good athlete, but he's just not built great for the position. Joey Porter Jr., absolute opposite. The guy was made in a lab to play corner, just like Sauce Gardner, who I loved. Sauce Gardner was one of my favorite prospects last year. I do think Christian Gonzalez is perfect for what they want to do. I think he could be there at 18. I would not take one or look at one at 6. I don't think there's a I don't think there's a surefire guy there. I would look at Christian Gonzalez. For them specifically in the scheme they run, it would be between Christian Gonzalez or Cam Smith. I don't think Witherspoon or Porter are perfect for them. Or Deonte Banks, who's another great cornerback, super fast, but also I just don't think he's perfect for what the Lions do.
Got it. That's what we want to know, number one podcast listeners. We all like corners or have heard of certain ones, but fit matters, obviously, and some good fortune with health, unlike Okudah.
Okudah's problem was just that he didn't learn fast enough. He was a really good cornerback at Ohio State. Like, people watch this stuff, and it's like, okay, but he's not guarding Cooper Kupp right there. So it's like, if he gets beat a little bit, like, is it true Okudah never had a penalty in college? Or never had, like, a pass interference or something like that, right? See, that's just because he was never in a position where he needed to pass interfere. You know, he's playing against shitty quarterbacks. Like, who the fuck? No offense. Like, you know, I often find myself being an asshole to you and saying, like, oh, Michigan's pretty good this year. But, like, who the fuck, what quarterback was actually challenging Jeff Okudah?
No.
You know what I mean? He was just,
especially those years he was there.
Yeah, he was just one of those guys, and this happens a lot where people are like, "Oh, he was so good. He was like he dominated." It's just like, yeah, but he never did NFL stuff from a cornerback position.
Yeah, it does seem in general like, obviously this is just a blanket term, but you kind of want guys that weren't on great teams because you know they're going to get tested.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That is part of Ohio State's problem.
Yeah. They had quite a stretch. Now their secondary sucked lately, so if someone sticks out now it'll be more impressive. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we got some more questions. I got a stretch of them.
Let's do it.
How far will Jalen Carter fall, if at all? Obviously, he had some trouble with the law recently.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. His agent's not going to listen. His agent's not going to listen to this. We can call him a piece of shit.
Boys versus the petty boys.
Yes. He's a piece of shit. Okay.
Yeah, there it is. He's a piece of shit.
Will he drop? Obviously, he chose to not visit anyone outside of the top 10. He's confident he's going in that top 10. Is that the case?
Yep.
Will he fall at all?
No, he won't fall, but he's not as good a prospect as people think he is.
Okay.
I love Jalen Carter. Bulldogs fan. I've watched almost every Jalen Carter game. People think that Jalen Carter is going to come in and start terrorizing on defense. He is not
Aaron
that
Donald.
guy. He is not that guy. Jalen Carter is a phenomenal athlete. He is a freak. He is a better version of Haloti Ngata. If you remember Haloti Ngata, he's a better version of Haloti Ngata. But guess what? Haloti Ngata was not a terrorizer.
Right.
He was not Aaron Donald. They play completely different positions. What he do is extremely valuable. You know, like, how often a team right now is like, look at how many RPOs there are. The shotgun is at like a 69% rate or something like that.
Nice.
Going in single back. So I know it is kind of, it's a good number. But that means that teams are sitting there 31% of the time coming out with their quarterback under the center. In those situations, Jalen Carter is going to be the best player on the field. So if you can have the best player or a huge advantage for 30% of your team snaps, that is what makes Jalen Carter great. He's not going to fall, although he should. He should go undrafted. This guy's about to be a millionaire. You should not be able to do shitty things and then be a millionaire.
Petty alert. Petty alert. Petty
But he's not going to fall.
So, speaking of Georgia, I know you loved Jordan Davis last year.
I did.
He's on the Eagles now. How do these two guys compare? They did play together, obviously, at Georgia.
Yeah. Jordan Davis is more of a gap attacker. And for a lot of people that aren't super familiar with like the X's and O's side of things, a gap attacker is a guy that basically doesn't actually like to be lined up and push back his guy. Despite his huge size, what makes Jordan Davis elite was his ability to move around guys. So he wants to sit inside the shoulders. Jalen Carter wants to get right in front of his fucking guy. Jalen Carter's going to disrupt the play by using the guy in front of him to make that pocket even smaller on the quarterback.
Love that breakdown. Nice and easy to understand. Okay. What should the Chicago Bears, who formerly had the number 1 pick, trade it for a nice little haul? Seemingly, the Bears have a lot of needs, obviously. Who should they prioritize at number 9?
I have them in my mock, so this is our first spoiler pick in the mock, but I can't stress this enough. This is one of the things I'm actually most passionate about in this draft. If they don't draft JSN for Justin Fields, not a wideout, JSN for Justin Fields, they should be tried for malpractice. Look at what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are doing right now. Justin Fields needs a guy that comes from that Ryan Day system. He can talk with them. He can level with them. They have a familiarity. He needs a guy. They traded for Chase Claypool, not the guy. They got DJ Moore. DJ Moore could be the guy. DJ Moore could be great. But you know what DJ Moore is? DJ Moore is a vet. DJ Moore is going to be telling Justin Fields what to do. And that is not what Justin Fields needs. Justin Fields needs a guy he can say, hey, let's do XX. Justin Fields is a confident quarterback. There's a lot of quarterbacks that I say, Zach Wilson, confidence quarterback. These guys could be great. If they start firing, their confidence is good. That's a deal breaker for them. You see Justin Fields has zero fucking confidence in anyone on his team. He has zero confidence. He looks around.
That's why he rushed for 1,000 yards. He never did that at Ohio State. Never had to.
1,000 difficult yards. These are not.
Yes.
These are not. I don't want to downplay what Lamar does. These are not Lamar Jackson yards. These are. It's like the Benny Hill music should have been playing when Justin Fields was running around. The things he did for that Bears team, and they still ended up the worst team in the league. It would be malpractice not to go ahead and get JSN for him and say, that's your guy. We believe in you. We got you. Your guy. Let's move on.
Wow, that got me fired up. My ultimate, long shot, basically no chance pipe dream is that somehow JSN falls to the Cowboys. But that would make me pumped to see that Smith and
that is not
Justin
happening
Fields.
for sure.
It's not. I know. I am aware of that, but it is hence the pipe dream part. Okay. I love this question. You'll probably know who it's from based on how I read it. I wish I could do the voice, but his signature voice. The Packers clearly need more pass catching help. What Georgia defender will they take at 15?
Obviously a joke, but if they had to, I would say Nolan Smith or Keely Ringo. I do think that the Packers are going to help Jordan Love. I don't necessarily think that they can fucking stop themselves from taking a Georgia defender.
Especially with ones in that area.
Yeah, it's incredible. And the thing with Georgia is back-to-back champs. They played one of the greatest college football games I've ever seen against Ohio State. That was like a masterclass in most people being good. Marvin Harrison isn't concussed. We're not back-to-back champs. It's just I 100% believe that. But a lot of these teams want these Georgia guys because they're proven winners. And I think that drafting a proven winner on defense is relatively useless when they're all fucking winners. It's like, does Keely Ringo actually have that winning formula in him, or are they winning a national championship without him?
True. Well, if they go offense, I know this is a joke, but if the Packers do go offense, who should they target in that range right in the middle of the first round?
Quentin Johnson, Dalton Kincaid would be good. I could even see Jordan Addison. They should definitely get somebody. They never really did Aaron Rodgers any favors. Not that he deserves it, but they never really did Aaron Rodgers any favors. And I think specifically they're going to do Jordan Love favors just to be petty.
Sound it, baby. You played yourself Hall of Fame member Aaron Rodgers. Never forget. Yeah, I do think they're finally going to draft a receiver. It just kind of feels like it's going to happen now.
Yeah. It's so intentional.
Getting rid of him. Yeah. Okay. We talked about this a little earlier. the next question is, what high-profile player can we expect to be moved on draft night? We talked about last year how all the thoughts then were, about Kadarius Toney and Deebo Samuel. Toney did end up getting moved to the Chiefs, but Deebo stayed put on the Niners. The surprise one was A.J. Brown, and then Hollywood Brown got moved too last year. Any players you think might get moved
on draft night? I would say Devin White, Derrick Henry.
Just requested a trade.
Devin White, Derrick Henry's a possibility. I'd say if you told me that Saquon Barkley got traded on draft night to the Chiefs or something like that, I would be like, yeah, okay. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
Wouldn't
even
surprise you.
Yeah, I would not surprise me. If the Bills called with 27 and said, we want Saquon Barkley, yeah, they're doing that. Like, the Giants are saying, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked to see those guys get traded. If you want to see, like, more of a hot take and you're like, all right, like, what's actually happening here? I would not be shocked, not be totally floored, would not be the craziest thing in the world to see the Titans trade Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. All these guys are gone. And I also, just hypothetically, just purely out there, Mac Jones could get moved. I know they're saying no. They're saying they're not moving him. I think if there's a guy at 14 that they like, I could see Mac Jones getting moved. There's a lot of guys this draft I could see getting wheeled and dealed. Definitely one of those, maybe not day one just because none of them are worth it, but definitely one of those Commanders linemen. They can't pay them all.
Yeah.
And you can't not pay Chase Young. So it's Montez Sweat I could see going for a first-round pick.
I mean, and he balled out in Chase Young's absence, so they could get pretty good value from him. Who doesn't need a pass rusher?
I love Chase Young, though. I'll never give up on him.
I know. Hopefully he can be healthy.
Yeah, it's never given
up. Which team is basically already screwed?
Colts. Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, roster's a fucking disaster. Head coach, disaster. Whole thing's bad. They don't have the makeup of a team to be as bad as they are, and they don't have the position to draft a blue chip prospect like they need to. They're screwed because they're going to have to take, and it is possible. I mean, I have hot takes, but we'll get to those. We'll get to mock drafts and stuff later. It is possible good guys available, but it looks like they're going to have to choose between Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. And the most valuable thing in the NFL, is a quarterback on a rookie contract. And wasting years developing that guy is not great. And let's say Anthony Richardson comes in and, he's like Michael Vick at the beginning of his career, which is totally possible, which is entirely, it's not out of the realm. Michael Vick wasn't a polished passer coming out either. It's just a freak athlete who had a legitimate bazooka attached to his torso. They're still not winning shit. Jonathan Taylor doesn't even look good anymore. This whole team needs to be stripped down to the studs, to the absolute studs. That team is not rebuilding in any. They are the biggest trade down. People are like, oh, they're going to trade up. No. That team should trade down more than anybody in the world. Also, the Cardinals, just because Kyler Murray's very possibly going to miss the entire next year. So
yeah, because he got hurt so late in the year.
Yeah, that's like a very real. What are you going to do if the Cardinals are, Brock Strevely or whoever the fuck they're going to play at quarterback this year?
Yeah.
Whatever moron takes snaps for them. What are you going to do when they're 0-10, 1-9, whatever it is? Are you going to bring Kyler Murray back and say, turn this ship around? Or are you just going to shut Kyler Murray down, get the first overall pick, ship Kyler Murray off somewhere, and draft Caleb Williams? So the Cardinals.
Yeah, I was going to say Caleb Williams. Yeah, exactly. You're obviously going to reset.
They are in complete win. There's no way to win this year situations. And, when 30 NFL teams can say there's a chance, and those two teams are like, I don't even see a path. That's how you know those teams are fucked. Like, even the Bears, hypothetically, who were just the worst team in the league, DJ Moore is a huge addition. Say Justin Fields makes a leap. That there's a chance there. There's just really no shot for the Colts or Cardinals.
Yeah, and you look at the Bears, they used their cap space, they beefed up the line a little bit, and they'll be able to presumably do that more in the draft. So, yeah, they're in a much better shape.
Yeah, it's
Fields
true.
did it with no skill.
They had my second favorite offseason of any team in the league, the Bears.
Who was the first?
Cowboys.
What it do, baby?
Wow.
Yeah.
You just love to hear it.
Yeah, oh my God. I mean, the improvements they made, and they gave up nothing.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I'm not used to it. I don't know what's going on, but
it's odd. It's odd. I didn't know. I was like, oh, Brandon Cooks got traded, I'm like, to the Cowboys, and you know, I know you were very like, why trade Amari Cooper for nothing?
Yeah.
But I was never an Amari Cooper believer. So to me, I was just like, okay, the
it's
Cowboys.
Not necessarily that I'm like I was a huge Amari Cooper believer, but I wasn't a believer in trading him for nothing. But then they did the same trade to pick up Cooks. So
it's honestly they had a great offseason, an incredible offseason.
I can't believe we're saying that. But anyway, that is a perfect segue to the next question. If you were the Cowboys, who and when would you target running back and tight end specifically? Obviously, they let Dalton Schultz go in free agency. He signed a 1-year deal with the Texans and cut Zeke. Knew that was coming. I think Zeke is still on track to sign with the Bengals, it looks like, but nothing official just yet.
I would love it. I'd welcome it with open arms.
I said the same thing. Got a few friends that are Bengals fans. One was a little skeptical, and I said from the start, because I knew he was going to get cut, I said he would be a great fit for the Bengals because he really is a good pass blocker.
He's phenomenal.
And they're going to want a pass block. So they're going to pass a lot.
Oh no, we have to like replace Samaje Perine, who I literally blamed for a Super Bowl loss. Like, what a shame.
Yeah, I mean,
if I'm the Cowboys and I'm replacing him, by the way, I'm looking at this is a deep cut. A lot of people don't know this guy, Sam Laporta from Iowa. In the second round, not in the first. If you take him at 26, Cowboys fans are going to be fucking furious. And I can honestly say, just shut up and watch that guy play football. Like, he's incredible. He's incredible.
I mean, there's a good track record from tight ends from that school. So
yeah, he's incredible. Running back wise, I'd say Gibbs or Charbonnet. Bijan's probably out of the question. I don't know if the Cowboys really should be going running back at all. I think drafting somebody way later, even Deuce, the 5'5" kid from Kansas State. I say kid. Actually, yeah, I'm older than these guys now. They might be able to beat the shit out of me, but I'm older than them. But the kid from Kansas State who's 5'5", incredible. But also an incredible athlete. If he was 5'10", he'd be the first overall pick.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's that good of an athlete. He was just 5'5". But yeah, I think Deuce in the later rounds and Sam Laporta, if you could get him in round 2 for the Cowboys, that is a home run.
That's Deuce Vaughn, by the way, number one podcast listeners, the running back from Kansas State.
Baby Deuce.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I don't know that there's a running back out there unless you can get a good value, like, Gibbs somehow falls at a decent clip. But then is Gibbs and Tony Pollard a good combo together?
No. I mean, they do redundant shit. That's why I'm saying the Cowboys investing in a running back is probably not a good idea. But taking one when they're the best player available makes sense.
Yep. Got it. Okay. I like this one. Kind of connects to the combine a little bit as we move into the draft. Do you think measurables like height, weight, hand size matter nearly as much as the narrative, or is that for the public and NFL teams largely disregard that stuff when it comes to QB specifically?
So I have inside information on this. I was given permission to quote him a couple times on certain things. A friend of mine works for an NFL team in the analytics department. A lot of times these things are tiebreakers only.
Okay.
And people don't realize that. So, like, if someone has small hands and someone has giant hands and they like the small hands guy more, they don't give a shit about the hand size. But if all things are considered, they're like, it's neck and neck. They go with the guy with less risk, and less risk is more traditional. So these things are largely manufactured. Look at Joe Burrow. Didn't he tweet he was like retiring from the NFL? Like,
yeah, because of small hands. I remember he made a big joke of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it doesn't actually matter to NFL teams unless it's like the deciding factor.
Makes sense. That's how you'd hope it would be.
Yeah, they just use it as a tiebreaker. And he specifically, his job, I was given permission, so I don't feel bad like setting this stuff up, is taking these measurables and applying them to what they have like ideally. So he's given certain players, they're like, we really love Micah Parsons, hypothetically. Yeah. It's not Micah Parsons, and he doesn't work for the Cowboys. That's why I'm using this example. But, hey, we really love what we have in Micah Parsons. His contract's coming up. Can you find a guy who most similarly fits into his specifics?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that way, if we can't get a deal done with him, we have a guy that can relatively plug in behind him.
Got it.
And that's like his main job is actually, and they do it with guys on other teams. Oh, hey, we really love what, I don't know, Drake London has. What guys have them? We were really pissed we missed out on Drake London. What guys have similar makeups to Drake London athletically, and from a measurement standpoint, and then maybe we could just teach them to do Drake London stuff. And I thought that was really interesting when I found out about that, because I largely never believed NFL teams really did that, ever. I never thought they thought that way. Yeah, but they do. They straight up will say, like, hey, who's like Travis Kelce?
That's freaking awesome. Makes so much sense.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, oh, of course. But like never before but when I heard it, I was just like, they're not doing that. But they'll be like, hey, and that's why you see a lot of teams, and you'll notice now, and I went back and I was checking his team for the years he worked there without giving too much up. And went back and I was like, oh my God, yeah, they were drafting guys and being like, this guy emulates another guy on the roster, or this guy. And it's like they do it a lot with free agents. They look at the free agents class and they're like, next year's class has X in it. We want to sign him. Oh, they already know this. Like, they're already having these discussions internally. They're like, if we can't, who's a guy we could draft in the 6th or 7th that's like him, and we can kind of see what we can make work. Or they use that 6th or 7th guy as a placeholder. Does his skill set match what we want from the guy we want to sign? And if they're like, oh, this works, they'll use these players as like test runs almost.
That's fun.
That's where a lot of undrafted free agent stuff happens. That's what I was told. He's like, a lot of times they'll say, like, they don't even believe in a player. They'll just be like, and this didn't happen, but hypothetically, Adam Thielen. They were just like, oh, hey, we like, what someone else brings in the NFL. Adam Thielen vaguely fits that profile. Let's just bring him in. And sure enough, it worked out for them.
Right.
But I did think that was interesting, so I can say...
It's very, very fascinating.
Yeah, the measurables do matter, but not the way you think they do. An NFL team is not looking at a quarterback's hand size and saying he can't... What's crazy is for fans to even think it matters. Who the fuck has ever seen Joe Burrow play football and been like, can he actually play quarterback? His hands are kind of small. It makes no sense. I mean, like, you've seen these guys do it over and over. It's not like Kenny Pickett didn't play 18 years of football.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So,
it's not like Embiid or someone who came over late from a different country and was like learning the sport.
So my follow-up question to that, though, is it'll be particularly discussed and already has been in this draft because of Bryce Young's height.
Again.
Now, yeah,
not
it's just a tiebreaker.
Yep.
Got it.
That's it. Look at Bryce Young. They've seen him. You know who he's throwing over? He's throwing over NFL-sized guys in Alabama.
Yeah, it's not like he's playing
exactly.
At some,
which is when it would matter. And that's why you never see these tiny guys get drafted out of these shitty schools because they have too much going against them. Josh Allen played at Wyoming. That was a shitty school. Look at all the guys at North Dakota State that are getting drafted. Carson Wentz. These guys are big prototypical guys because they fit the profile of something obviously Wentz, Lance, and Allen were all first-round picks. They were all top 10 picks. But it's one of those things where it doesn't matter. They're not looking at Bryce Young and saying, "Oh, can he play football?" He obviously can play football. It's never like, look at CJ Stroud. The guy looks like he's like Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson literally could not look more like what I want an NFL player to look like in terms of his height, weight, muscles, charisma. Yeah. The guy's fucking funny. Yeah,
he's like literally
created ideal NFL quarterback right there. And literally he sucks at football so much that they're like, I don't know if he could pass the ball. We've seen him try to throw the ball 1,000 times, and he's not that great at it. And it matters, but it's a tiebreaker only.
Good to hear, actually. Okay. These ones, I want to include these little creative usernames they submitted because
Let's go.
They gave me a good giggle. All right. This is from user Conditional Texans Fan 69. Nice. If Stroud is off the board, what is the best play for the Texans? Clearly, this particular person is Team CJ Stroud, rightfully so. Go Bucks.
I see that.
Do you believe in Bryce Young? Spoiler alert, he does. Who is smaller than the GM, aforementioned Nick Caserio? Or do you take a flyer on Richardson? Or then do you take the field like someone like Will Anderson?
I think this is actually a really interesting question, and it's something I've talked about a lot in my circles. One of the things that people don't realize is the Texans just had the greatest defensive end, arguably, in NFL history in J.J. Watt, right? Everyone can say that. That team was fucking dog shit because they didn't have a good quarterback. So even if Will Anderson ends up the greatest defensive end in NFL history, he's still not as valuable as a good quarterback. Now, the NFL does not have the right mentality, or I guess I don't have the right mentality because it's not like the NFL could be wrong. But I think the Texans' problem here is that they almost have to take a quarterback when they should not be worried about taking a quarterback. It should not even be... If they don't believe, I do believe in Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young goes first, spoiler alert. So CJ Stroud should be there for them. But if the Texans are looking at CJ Stroud and they think, I don't know, or they're not 100% sold on him, just don't draft him. Just don't do it. It's that simple. It's that easy. Quarterback is so important that you're actually better off sucking and giving your team no hope and just drafting a really good player. Because, again, what's the most valuable thing in the NFL? A rookie contract quarterback.
Yep.
That's the most valuable thing. Putting C.J. Stroud on this Texans team maybe gets them to 6 wins. It's not like nothing is going to fix this team instantly. So if they aren't sold on a quarterback, they shouldn't take one. Any NFL team should not be like, we need a quarterback. And it happens all the time. It happens all the time. If you aren't sold on a quarterback, you shouldn't take one just because you need one. The Texans need about 15 starters on that team.
Yeah.
And let someone else take that risk. Let someone else trade up and take the quarterback, Like the Texans were never a trade up option to number one for 2 reasons. One reason, I don't believe that they think CJ Stroud or Bryce Young are surefire picks. I don't think they think either one of those guys is a definite to be great. And 2, I think DeMeco Ryans understands this team is a disaster. And taking, and trading down was a more likely option for them. If somebody else wanted to do that, imagine how pissed the Cardinals would be if the Texans suddenly traded down with the Raiders or somebody. And the Cardinals are like, well, our pick's useless. Like that's it now, because no one's going to be trading up for Will Levis or Anthony Richardson at this point, because the Colts are going to take
something.
Exactly. So the Colts are going to take whichever one they want, if they want either of them. The Texans walk away with a blue chip prospect and next year's first. And newsflash, because you're terrible, you can go get a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, whoever you want next year, if you think they're good enough. So if Stroud's off the board, the best play for the Texans is to ask themselves internally, do we actually believe, because DeMeco Ryans is saying some very weird shit, which people are like, oh, it's really nice he thinks this way. Oh, it's really good. But like, he's like, oh, I'm not asking someone to come in and save this team. If you draft a quarterback, you are absolutely asking somebody to come in and save this team. No quarterback Patrick Mahomes got drafted to an amazing team. He got drafted to a really good Chiefs team with a really, really good head coach. And he didn't even have to play right away. And you'll remember, I was so high on Patrick Mahomes. I was like, Patrick Mahomes is, I actually said, could be the greatest quarterback of all time. I've never seen someone with that level of balance and arm strength, and I've still never seen it. He's still the greatest quarterback thrower I've ever seen in my life. And even Patrick Mahomes would not save this Texans team right now.
Wow.
You need to make a right decision every single day to win in the NFL. And if the Texans aren't sold on a guy, the right decision is taking a Will Anderson or Tyree. And I know we just watched J.J. Watt. I know we just watched them waste a guy's career. But guess what? It doesn't matter because they drafted Watson, who was great for them at 14. Or whatever they drafted him, 12, whatever pick they took. Yeah. But he was great for them. That's a guy they believed in, and they went and got him. If they really if they really believed in one of these guys, they would have traded to one.
Yeah, it's true.
Sorry, long answer, but I'm just passionate about the way teams handle quarterbacks.
I dig it. You've been right before, so
I see this constantly. Look at the year the Bills took EJ Manuel because they were like, well, we need a quarterback. What are you doing?
Yeah. He just did it arbitrarily.
Yeah, they're just like, no, it's not. It doesn't work that way. It's like asking a girl to be your wife because you're like, oh, I'm getting up there. I got to get married soon. That's not going to work.
So romantic.
Yeah, that's it's just how I think.
Okay, this is from user Massage Envy.
Go Browns.
Does the Lamar Jackson situation get resolved before, during, or after the draft? I think you already answered this. Yep. This is after the draft. Yeah,
I'm gonna say day 2. I'll say literally if like someone like Anthony Richardson doesn't fall, Anthony Richardson probably will not fall to the Ravens, or it'll be too expensive to trade up if he does start to fall. But I do think that if Anthony Richardson fell, they would just draft Anthony Richardson and trade Lamar Jackson somewhere. I don't think that's a very realistic situation of happening, but I think that right after that doesn't happen, the Ravens are going to say, okay. And the Ravens probably don't want to sign Lamar. The Ravens probably want somebody to do it, and you have to trade your consecutive firsts in the way that tag works. So a team like the Texans could draft Will Anderson at 2 and then trade next 2 years firsts for Lamar Jackson, which I also think is in play. So I would say it just happens day 2 of the NFL draft.
Love it. Even specific on the answer. Okay, this is from user The Only Cards Fan. Assuming any combination of Young, Stroud go 1-2, is it worth jumping up to 3 to get Richardson or Levis? Again, you kind of went over this one, but are Richardson or Levis worth that jump up to you?
No. I'm actually extremely low on Levis. I think he's a terrible project to take on unless you're an elite team. If Will Levis falls to a really good team, I don't know what team could take him. I honestly, just thinking on the top of my brain, looking at it right now, say hypothetically the Cowboys took him. But say hypothetically the Cowboys took him at 26. He could be good there. He gets to sit behind Dak or whatever. They trade Dak. Again, the Vikings at 23 is a realistic one. He sits behind Cousins for a year, and he's stepping into a good team.
Yeah.
I think that's his only situation. Anthony Richardson, again, if you could just teach the guy to throw the football, he's going to be incredible. He just sucks at throwing the football. And at this point, and I love, at this point, people are like, oh, it's his leg work, it's all this stuff. It doesn't matter. He's 21, maybe he's 20. But by now, he should be good at throwing the football. He's been trying to do it his whole life. So not being good at it right now is just a huge red flag.
All right, this one might be my favorite one, actually. This one is from user Sleepless in Sleepattle.
Great. Love it.
Shout out
what
you.
What it do, baby? Yeah.
Okay. What do the Lions and Seahawks do in day 1 and day 2 of the NFL draft? Obviously, we went over they each have 5 picks. Do they use any of their picks to get a quarterback. Obviously, you have Geno Smith, who is signed to a deal, kind of a mutually like prove it deal, but not too long term for the Seahawks. And obviously, the Lions have Jared Goff, who they were one game away from making the playoffs. Do they use any of their picks to get a quarterback, or do those two teams stick with best available outside the QB position?
Nah, both those teams are going to revamp their defense. Taking a quarterback. First of all, Goff could be the guy in Detroit. The offense was not the problem at all last year. He looked great for them. Geno Smith, again, wasn't the problem in Seattle. It was their defense. I think both of these teams use both their first-round picks to take defensive guys, and they make a real run at it. Both these teams were borderline playoff teams either way. The Seahawks just made it over the curve, and the Lions just missed it. So I do genuinely think that these teams are players away from making a run at a Super Bowl, and neither of these teams is going to waste those picks developing a guy. And again, there's not a guy at 5 or 6 that's going to be an elite player. Right. You know, there isn't even a Justin Fields. The one draft had Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, and Justin Fields, right?
Yep.
That was the draft. Lawrence and Fields were the only two guys that I was confident these guys can step in right now and play winning football if they need to. Yeah. That was it. The Wilson and the Lance of it both did not work out because drafting a quarterback based on what he can be in the future is almost always a bad idea. So unless they think there's a guy, you know, if Anthony Richardson falls to 18, Anthony Richardson falls to 20, I could see it. Will Levis, I literally have Will Levis, I think, to the Bucs at 19. So I could absolutely see one of those teams taking a run at him there. Neither of these teams are using their 5 or 6th pick on a quarterback, and it would be insane. And if they do, they're wrong. That's a really bad thing, and they've completely bungled the benefit of trading their aging franchise quarterback they weren't going to win with.
I feel like most reasonable Lions and Seahawks fans would agree with you there.
You'd be shocked. Some people
close they were.
Yeah, some people are like, hey, you know, and I get this side of it too, but some people are like, hey, we've really turned the ship around. Lions fans specifically are like, hey, we're good. Yeah. Don't forget, this isn't our pick we're picking with. Like, we're not going to be able to pick that high. But no amount of picks would stop you from going up and getting your guy. Look at what the Rams gave up to get Goff. You know what I mean? It's like they were at 16 or something when they were originally picking. No amount of picks is going to stop you from getting your guy. And I believe that. I just believe that wholeheartedly. And I don't think either of these teams think Levis or Richardson is the guy, especially not at 5 and 6.
Got it. All right. Now I wanted to get your rankings on some position groups that seem kind of jumbled. You see different rankings by different sources. So I wanted to get your how these guys stack up. First up is QB ranking. I feel like you've kind of hinted at it, but how do you rank the following prospects? I'll go with the big 4. If you want to add someone in that sneaks in before any of them, I'll leave that to you. But how do you rank CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis?
Bryce Young, let's say Bryce Young, little gap, Stroud, Richardson, big gap, Levis.
Got it.
That's how I would rank those guys. I just think I just don't know how he fixes this stuff. I don't know how Levis fixes what he needs going on. And it's just not one of those things I think happens fast.
So for you number one podcast listeners, on Thomas's big board, he's got Bryce Young as his 8th best overall prospect across all positions. As far as the other two, you said there's a small gap. Overall, you have CJ Stroud as the 32nd best prospect and Anthony Richardson as 33rd. And then, like you said, there's a big gap. It doesn't seem that way number-wise, but I know you're saying talent-wise, Will Levis is 43rd on your board.
Yeah, and I know it's just I think there's so many good players between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, and I would take all of those guys over that drop down. But I would rather take some guys below Will Levis, because when you take a quarterback, you're fucking forced to play this quarterback. You're stuck with him, or you're just burning the pick. So I think that in that range, I would have every single team. If somehow CJ Stroud drops past 5, if he makes it to the Seahawks and they don't take him, that's dumb. And it just gets dumber and dumber every single pick that they do it, because CJ Stroud doesn't need that much work to be a playable NFL quarterback. He really doesn't need that much work. Anthony Richardson also doesn't need that much work, but the work he needs is so important. It's literally learning to play quarterback. It's like all these guys are about a year of burning their talent away. I think Stroud can get there, and the reason I have him and Richardson is if Stroud doesn't get there, Anthony Richardson, say Stroud and Richardson don't get there, Richardson could literally just beat you with his legs. Stroud can't do that. Stroud needs to put it together, but he's more likely to do so. Richardson needs to put it together, but is less likely to. Richardson has somehow the higher floor and higher ceiling. That's why him and Stroud are close. I just think Stroud hits his ceiling much more likely.
Got it.
Extremely more likely. I can't stress that enough, but that's the reason they're close.
So obviously Bryce Young has a round 1 grade. Do Stroud and Richardson have round 1 grades, or are they just beyond that to you?
Stroud's a round one guy for me. Richardson is not. They're very specifically at 32 and 33. I think taking Stroud and getting that extra year with him is super important, because, and I love this, and a lot of people think this way, because some people think Hendon Hooker, who is not worth a draft pick, should be taken at the end of the first round because, you get the extra 5th year with him. First of all, he's going to be 30 when he signs that contract, when you're extending that, which is insane. But the reason Stroud is worth the first round pick is because at 5 years from now, Stroud's going to be a good quarterback. And you want that 5th round pick to keep his cap low. And the reason Richardson isn't worth it is you're going to know by year 3 or 4 whether or not Anthony Richardson's worth the extension.
Yep.
You don't need the cheap year. You're not going to get a cheap. You'd rather be able to get out of him quicker.
Yep.
That's my line there.
To your cap. Love that.
Yeah.
So you nailed your dark horse quarterback prospect last year, Bailey Zappi. He ended up starting a couple games for the Patriots. Even had them thinking twice about Mac Jones.
Again, I did have a first round pick on Zappi. I did. So when he played, when he came in and he played, to my belief,
I remember texting and messaging you about that when he started playing. I was like,
he
called it.
I mean, I watch these guys. I watch like almost all these quarterbacks throw every snap they can in college. And for Zappi, it was almost like 2,000 or something like that. But I do believe that Zappi hasn't lost a game he started yet. I could be wrong. I haven't watched all his NFL throws, or I haven't watched all his NFL games, but I do believe he hasn't lost a game he started.
Wow.
It's just, again, don't quote me on it. It's something I would look into, but I do believe he hasn't. I think he started 2 games and they won both.
So congratulations, you played yourself.
I'm just saying, going back to Jones is a disaster, but back to dark horse prospects.
Yes. Who's your Zappy of this year?
Okay, this is going to sound crazy, but Clayton Tune from Houston.
Go Cougs. Shout out to fam.
If he got taken in the first round, I would say, wow, that team really knows what they're doing.
Wow.
I would say, he is so tough, and he is the epitome of what I suck at doing. I can't separate someone's ability from their tangible value. I know a team is not going to take him in the first round, so he's not on my top 30. I know he's not, because that's just not how these things work. People look at where someone was drafted and compare them to a big board. A big board isn't even really talent-wise. It's as much as it should be. It should be pure talent, but really it's about value. And some team is going to get him, And I guarantee that team is gonna have to look in themselves and be like, should we play Clayton Tune over our starter?
Wow.
Some team is gonna take him and watch him throw the ball and be like, he's really good. Like, oh man, we thought we were just grabbing a guy, but we might have got the guy.
Wow.
6'3",
right.
215. I think he played 5 years or something in college. I'm just saying, it's all there.
Clayton Tune. You heard it here first, number one podcast listeners. Okay, last but not least, over-under. For quarterbacks taken in round one, if I give you 4.5.
Ooh, under. If someone takes Hendon Hooker in the first, things are bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'd be the one. You almost have to think it's gonna be one of those kind of. It feels like Hendon Hooker's the one that's being talked about because he's going on a lot of visits. They're top 30 prospect visits. So
yeah,
kind of where there's smoke, there's fire type thing. But
bad idea.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's gonna be those 4 that we talked about before.
Not worth a draft pick. Not worth a draft pick.
Okay, next up in position rankings, wide receiver. Obviously, it's pretty wide open with who people prefer, but if I give you these names, and feel free to add in any that I missed.
Okay.
Quentin Johnson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt. How do you rank those guys?
JSN. I love JSN. So JSN, Addison, Flowers, Downs, Johnston, Hyatt.
Wow, you're lower on Johnson than most folks, huh?
Yeah, and I'm actually higher on Hyatt. I would put Hyatt over him. I just know it's not close. Like, I know that's not going to happen, so doing it, that's where I'm saying there's like a disconnect.
Yeah.
Like, I just know that's not going to... Like, I would have Clayton Tune over Will Levis, but if I did that, people would be like, oh, he's Chris Sims. He's just a fucking hot takes guy. Like, but it's like, I don't want to be that guy. So it's like, I just... Yeah. These are the...
You don't want to lose your credibility.
Exactly. Because people would literally be like, what does this fucking guy know? And I'm like, what am I going to wait? In 5 years, that person's not going to, when they see Clayton Tune starting in a Super Bowl, they're not going to be like, oh, that guy was right. I should apologize to him on Twitter. Like, that's not happening.
Wouldn't that be sweet if that's how it worked?
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, it would be so great. But I would be doing so much apologizing.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be held responsible for my hot takes the other way.
I just want to be rude. Yeah.
I give you a similar over-under. 4.5 wide receivers taken over-under.
Under. I'm going to say 4 again.
Okay.
And I think it might be 3.
Really?
Yeah. I think my mock I have 4, but if someone didn't take Zay Flowers, I would not be shocked.
He does seem like a borderline Zay Flowers did go see... Yeah. Did get take a visit to Dallas, so
I again would love it, but I would not be shocked if some team went elsewhere.
Got it. Okay, we're gonna round out the offensive rankings before I give you a couple of defensive groups.
Okay, let's do it.
Tight end. We talked a little bit earlier about tight end. This one is another one that you see a lot of different rankings. Obviously, you brought up Laporta earlier in discussing about the Cowboys. But the big names you hear, Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Washington, Luke Musgrave, and the aforementioned Laporta. How would you rank those guys?
Mayer, Kincaid, Musgrave. Actually, Mayer, Kincaid, Laporta, Musgrave, Washington. And I really like this tight end class.
Okay.
I really like this tight end class. If you told me that a couple of years from now, they're like, wow, that was one of the greatest tight end classes ever, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
It does seem very, it seems like a pretty nice and deep group. Like,
well, you got everything.
A lot of talent, yeah. And you got like the high potential pick in Washington to round out the top 5 too.
Yeah, and what's crazy about Washington is he's actually going to function more as an inline blocker. He's going to be doing more chip and releases than anything else. He's never even going to be a great wideout or a great receiver, despite being 6'7". And it's
I'm sure he'll be a red zone threat too, like used that way.
It's just he's going to be a very good weapon for a team to have.
Okay, how many tight ends do you think go in round 1?
Ooh, I'll say 2. I'll say 2. It should be 3.
Is it top 2, the Mayer Kincaid? You think?
Yeah. I think it should be 3, but I think it'll be 2.
Okay.
Again, teams generally don't do what's best afterwards. Not saying I know what's best necessarily, but I'm just saying teams generally don't do the most ideal thing. Like the Rams took Tutu Atwell. There was like Nick Bolton was on the board. There was like 100 guys they could have taken that were better players, but they still took Tutu Atwell. So in that scenario, I was wrong. But and my best friend's a Rams fan. I was watching the draft with him. He's like, "What grade did you have on him?" And I was like, "Undrafted." He's like, "Well, he went in the second." I'm like, "Well, I don't know whose fault that is. I guess we can only wait to find out. Either I was really wrong or they are." So,
number one podcast listeners, to go back to your mock, you have Dalton Kincaid. Even though you ranked Michael Mayer ahead of him, you had Dalton Kincaid going 15 to the Packers.
Yep.
You have Michael Mayer going 28 to the Bengals.
Yep.
Which would be a great get for them and fit very well. I'm sure he'd do just fine there.
Yeah.
And Sam Laporta going 31 to the Chiefs, which, based on what you said, would be rich getting richer.
Yeah. Well, Kels is actually getting up there, and also Laporta. They run a lot of 2 tight end sets, and with the loss of some wideouts, they're probably just going to use more 2 tight end sets. Like the Chiefs are going to be fucking fine.
I'm sure they'll find the perfect use for him.
Exactly. And that's why I put him there specifically, because I was like, if any team is going to use this guy perfectly, it's the Chiefs.
Yep. Okay. Let's go over to the defense. I have 2 position groups for you. First up is one that seems like we hear a lot of different names. Defensive end or edge. If I give you the names, Will Anderson Jr., Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy, Nolan Smith, Lucas Van Ness, and we'll put in Will McDonald IV. How do you rank those guys from the edge?
Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness, Nolan Smith, and Will McDonald.
Okay.
I also actually don't like Will McDonald, and also think he will not be a good NFL player.
Right.
I can't say his fucking name, but Tuli Paluto from USC over him, and Derek Hall and BJ Ojulari. Like I'm really low on Will McDonald.
Okay. He's the guy at Iowa State that was getting a lot of love in the pro day, I believe it was.
Yes.
But okay. Yeah, edge seems like beyond most people knowing about Will Anderson, and then obviously Tyree Wilson's a big name that's making a lot of waves. Seems like kind of foregone that those 2 guys are going to go top 10 at some point, but the other guys kind of all get jumbled up.
Yeah.
But okay, and last position group I have for you for cornerback. We talked a little bit about it. You mentioned earlier Christian Gonzalez was your top cornerback prospect. So the names I give you, Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon, Joey Porter Jr., Cam Smith, and anyone else you want to add in at corner, how would you rank them?
Yeah. Gonzalez, Porter Jr., Cam Smith, Devon Witherspoon at that point, and then Deontay Banks probably.
Okay.
Keely Ringo is like, again, I wouldn't take him in the first. It's just the so many guys get bumped up just from the benefit of having the extra year versus so many guys I don't want the extra year. Like I look at all the NFL teams that like don't want that 5th year option. Like it was like a fucking grueling process for the Giants. Like they probably wish they could have got out of him a year earlier.
Yep. Then he played just well enough they had to sign him.
And I don't think they wanted to, but they can't afford to not to.
Yep.
So Keely Ringo is one of those guys that I think is going to hang around and you're going to be like, oh, I guess we got to re-sign him because he was good for us for 4 years, and you really don't want to. You really want someone else to be the team that pays him.
Right. Okay. Speaking of position groups, I wanted to get your take on what positions have a clear lock for their top prospect. For example, I'll give you like running back Bijan Robinson. Is he the far and away clear running back one? That seems like the most obvious one, but are there any other position groups like that?
One of my hot takes for this draft is no. It's just Bijan Robinson. That's it.
Wow.
Everyone else I can hear other directions or different things and things like that. But I could just say the only guy I'm confident 100% is going to be the best player from his position class is Bijan Robinson. I could see Jalen Carter I could see. But again, it depends on how you measure it because he's not going to be a guy that gets you 15 sacks a year. And Kalijah Cansey very well could be that guy. So it's just not going to look that way.
Okay.
I also think Bijan Robinson's my top player in this draft, and I know that the value of a running back is basically in the dirt, but Seattle and Detroit should both be like, both of those guys have running backs. Like, both of those teams have good running backs, and still both of them should take Bijan Robinson. And I don't believe they will, but both of those teams would definitely benefit from him. He's just an unbelievable runner.
Lions make a lot of sense because, they do have DeAndre Swift. They lost Jamal Williams in free agency, but they used Williams more down the stretch, and Swift hasn't been able to stay healthy. So would make a lot of sense, and it's the exact type of style that Dan Campbell wants to play, so it'd be kind of a fun pick.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the deepest position group?
Tight end.
Tight end. All right. What is the weakest position group?
Ooh, this one's tough. I'm going to say safety.
Okay. Is Brian Branch your top safety from Alabama?
Yeah, Brian Branch. I happen to love Jamie Robinson a lot, which is why I couldn't say Brian Branch was head and shoulders going to be the best guy.
All-time name, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I wish he played corner. And also Christopher Smith. But outside of those guys, there's not a lot of guys I would draft.
Okay. Bad news if you need a safety. It makes me more glad that the Cowboys took care of their nice little trio of safeties that work well for their defense, Dan Quinn's defense.
Yeah.
Best offensive prospect, you already stated, is Bijan Robinson, correct?
Yes.
Who is after Bijan?
On offense, well, it's really just skill
JSN,
position,
right?
guys. Yeah, it's JSN. It's just skill. You could skip offensive linemen. They're not just like the best defensive prospect, which I'm guessing is the next question, is going to be something along the lines of like, it's Jalen Carter, but really it's Christian Gonzalez. Like, no one's going to enjoy the way Jalen Carter plays football. And the things he does, like, are unsexy things. Like, it's just one of those guys where you're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, if he's so good, why does he get 4 sacks and 20 tackles a year?
Yeah.
And it's like, because he's slow and he's huge. Right. And it's like, he also bats down 5 passes on 3rd down. It's just like he plays an unsexy game.
Right. Okay. I wanted to, we did this last year. I thought it was fun. Your top 5 picks, who it will be, like who you think based on need that it'll end up being, and who you think it should be if you were drafting for each of the top 5 teams.
Cool.
So I'll run down based on your mock draft, and then give me your top 5 of what you think should happen. So in your mock draft, which again we will add in here for you number one podcast listeners, in your mock draft you have Bryce Young going number 1 to the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
CJ Stroud going number 2 to the Houston Texans.
Yep.
Jalen Carter going to the Cardinals.
Yep.
Anthony Richardson going number 4 to the Colts. And Will Anderson Jr. going number 5 to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, give me your what should happen mock draft top 5.
Carolina should go Bryce Young. They traded up to 1, so they have to take a quarterback. There's no other option there. The Houston Texans should take Jalen Carter. or Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson. They should take a defender there. They're not going to, but they should take a defender. The Cardinals should trade down. If I did trades in my mock, I would have them trading down. But I think that if they are stuck at 3, they should take Carter. 4, I think the Colts actually should take Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson because, again, they're not going to develop Richardson. It's just, I would love for them to. I'd love to be wrong, but they're just not going to do it. They haven't been able to develop anybody. And Seattle should take the other one. Wilson, I guess, at this point. If I have the Cardinals should, or if the Houston should take Carter, Arizona should take Anderson, then they should take Wilson.
Got it.
I also Christian Gonzalez for Seattle would be fucking great. And, pair him with Tariq Woolen.
Yeah.
I don't think teams. I think teams try to get balanced too often, and you'll notice a lot of the teams that have won. Look at what the Chiefs did, this year. Like, not a particularly balanced team. They went out and they won all their games by having a lot of good skill position players, really unique skill position players. Kadarius Toney's a unique player. Mecole Hardman's a unique player. Sky Moore's a unique player. Travis Kelce, unique player. They didn't really try to get balanced, and that's like how you win Super Bowls is by just having one thing you're really, really good at and dominating it. No, look at the Eagles, just made it to the Super Bowl basically exclusively because they were the best short yardage running team in history.
Yep.
Like, giving yourself a mismatch is more important than being well balanced.
Yeah, because then you can just control the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Wanted to get one or a couple dark horse prospects for, let's say, late day 2 into day 3. Rounds 3 through 7, if you have any.
Yeah, it's going to be Clayton Tune. That's where he's going to go, and he's going to be. I'm very confident that he's going to, at the very least, stick around in the NFL for a while.
All right, Clayton Tune. High ceiling prospect that will surprise.
Okay, this is a hot take. Paris Johnson is unbelievably polished already. People say he's not so polished because he comes from that Ryan Day system. I think he actually has a much harder job than he will in the NFL, and he could surprise. And if they told me Paris Johnson is a 10-time All-Pro and breaks Munoz's record, I would not be floored. I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. He literally learned everything he needed to in college. Ryan Day did him no favors. Who's the offensive line coach there? I don't know.
It's changed while he's been there. That's changed a couple times, yeah.
That's probably good for him. Like, that's genuinely probably been good for him because he's learning so much. But if you told me Paris Johnson ended up being well worth a top 5 pick, I wouldn't be shocked.
It's currently Justin Fry. It was Greg Studrawa. I think it was... I can't remember before that, but I think he would have had those two predominantly while he had significant playing time.
Yeah.
But then he had that mess of a season where they played 5 offensive linemen out of position. They tried to play the best 5 they had, and it was...
disaster.
It was weird. Yeah. But love to hear that. I know just for you number one podcast listeners, as far as tackle goes, you hear kind of Paris Johnson Jr. and the tackle out of Northwestern, Peter Skoronski, mentioned as the top 2 tackles most of the time. You do mix in a couple other guys, but in your mock draft, you have Paris Johnson Jr. going 7 to the Raiders, and you have Skoronski going 11 to the Titans.
Yep.
Okay. What prospect is overrated?
Will McDonald, Will Levis, a lot of Wills. Will McDonald, Will Levis, and Quentin Johnson.
Okay. Love it. Those are names most people are hearing through the draft, so those are names you're hearing a lot in round 1. Okay, you've sprinkled them in. You have any additional hot takes for the number one podcast listeners to leave them with?
I have one that I have somewhat been, I guess, saving in the chamber for this moment.
What it do, baby?
I know. It's incredible. I would not be shocked to see the Seahawks take Nolan Smith at 5.
Whoa.
That is my hot take, is Nolan Smith could go as high as 5. And another hot take, which I think is possible, the Titans trade up to 2 to take CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson.
Wow.
I think
could you imagine the price to trade within the division?
I think it could happen. I think if they decide to keep Derrick Henry and they say, give me Anthony Richardson, give me CJ Stroud, Tannehill fucking sucks. He's always sucked. He's a bum. But it's one of those things where I could see that happening. I could also see a lot of teams trying to make huge home run plays in this draft. Particularly, I would not be shocked to see the Jets package one of those seconds, whichever one isn't in the Rodgers trade, because we know one of them's going to be, and 13 to get into the top 10, maybe to try and take a blue chip guy.
Wow, love that. That's what we came here for. We found a way to make it spicy, even though you played yourself was a little shorter.
Yeah, we did what we could.
Yes. That wraps up all the questions. I want to thank you, number one, podcast listeners, for submitting those for Thomas to answer. It did not disappoint, Thomas. Appreciate your expertise and insight into all these random questions here and there.
I'm happy to help.
Yeah. Let's move on to what you feeling. So, Thomas, other than the NFL draft, what are you feeling lately?
My weight loss journey. I just started it. I've decided to be inconceivably hot again.
What it do,
I no
baby?
longer like being chubby. It's not fun. I got many people that are close to me know I actually got fat as a bit. I have always been very thin and athletic and stuff in my life, and I put on, no joke, 60 pounds, and I've only been able to get rid of 10 of it. So I am fully committing from now to try and lose some weight, try and be more active. It is insane to get fat as a bit. I know that people struggle with body images, but
yeah.
I did it. I thought it would be more, I don't know how to say it, freeing. I thought it would be nicer to not worry about calories, and it's really kind of sick when you think about it, because I looked at that lifestyle and thought of it as a negative thing, almost like freeing. I was like, must be nice to not care about what you eat. Like, I was jealous of larger people when I was skinnier, but now that I'm larger, I just like hate the way clothes fit me. It's so much of it is like really fucked up on society. So I have like a unique perspective because I got large on purpose. But I am feeling finally committing to my weight loss journey. I did 16,000 steps today. I'm looking at my watch now. I did 16,000 steps and burned 2,500 calories.
Shit.
Ooh, we're on our way, baby. I know, we're on our way.
Love that. What I'm feeling is Ellie Goulding's new album, Higher Than Heaven. It's my favorite album of hers since Halcyon back in the day. So that's what got me into listening to Ellie Goulding. So it seems like it's a return to the classic. So a lot of folks don't know I'm hip hop heavy, but I do like my pop music. So that's what I'm feeling lately. And obviously NFL draft fast approaching, hence why we did this episode. So I love this time of year. It's freaking phenomenal. I'm a draft nerd. It feels like more people are coming around to it too. So it should be a lot of fun as that comes up.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Anyway, you know how we like to wrap up each episode? Too much sense. So let's hit that too much sense intro, baby. Okay, my too much sense for this episode is about birthdays. So as I get older, I hear more and more people not excited to celebrate their birthdays. Fam, you should celebrate your people. They deserve to always know how you feel about them, but especially on their birthday, their day. It's a great excuse to tell someone what you mean to them. And what a beautiful thing to dedicate a day and part of the day to just sending love to someone that matters to you, even if they don't think the birthday is a big deal. It's a nice way or reminder at least once a year to show those people you love that you love them. So that's my too much sense for this episode.
I love it. I actually just had a birthday.
Yes, you did.
I am very notoriously not a birthday guy. I don't think I like celebrating other people's birthdays. I agree with everything you're saying. Everything you said is spot on. As a not birthday guy, the only reason I'm not a birthday guy is, and Prem, you can account to this, you can attest to this. I try to make every day like somebody's birthday. Like that's just how I live my life.
You are like that. You do.
I just try to, like, every day I want someone to feel like anytime I come in contact, every time we text, I'm like, let me make sure he knows I love him. Let me go above and beyond. How can I be a good friend? Because I honestly think that's what friendship is. Prem, you and I don't talk every day, but it's when we do, it's like nothing but great vibes, except when Georgia beats Ohio State. But it's nothing but great vibes.
Not my finest, not my finest moment, but I did apologize for my behavior.
Yeah, but see, the whole thing is, it's like every time I talk to you, I actually leave our conversations feeling great. It's like free therapy.
Too.
So it's one of those things where it's like, the only reason I'm not a birthday guy is because I don't like the concept of being like, today I'm going to love you. Today I'm going to give you your moment. Like, today I'm going to give you your flowers. But it is, I will say, a great excuse to do so.
Yes, I fully agree with that. If you can be that way, the way you are, you don't need just one day to show someone their love. But if you're not the best at it, then birthdays are a good excuse to at least do it.
Hell yeah. And sometimes it's tough. That's actually the hardest part of being alive. Like, being nice all the time is difficult. Like, you're an extremely nice guy, and sometimes it's like you have your own shit going on. You have a baby, you have a wife, like, you have your life going on. You're stressed, but like you still do it, dude. Always a positive vibe.
I try to be, unless it's football season, as you witness. But, you number one podcast listeners always know that. I try to be positive most of the time, but sports is where that falters a little, which is fine. It's usually to my own detriment, no one else's. I try not to impact other people, but you never know how much it spills into. But yeah, thank you. That means a lot. I try to be positive. I think it's a good feeling when you can brighten somebody's day, and you never know how to impact them. And I think it has a way of like kind of bouncing back at you when you make someone else feel good. So there is that added benefit of your own self-happiness when you show love to other people. So I genuinely believe that, and it's gotten me this far. So you act on that all the time. So
It's got to be about it.
Hopefully it does produce that same result. Yeah. But anyway, you number one podcast listeners, this does it for our NFL Draft Preview edition of Prem Brulee. You already know it's the number one podcast in your headphones, the number one NFL Draft Preview for your headphones. As you approach it, make sure you take in all this expertise from our guy Thomas so that you can prove that you're smarter than anybody else talking NFL Draft as it comes up later this month.
Petty alert, petty alert, petty alert.
And you know the drill. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Like, comment, leave a review. We greatly appreciate it here at Prem Brulee. We couldn't do it without you, and I hope you enjoyed this edition. I want to thank you, Thomas, for joining me and providing your expertise. It's greatly appreciated, my guy.
Always. I actually turned down other podcasts. I'm like, I'm a Prem exclusive.
Amen. You love to hear it.
No. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Hell yeah. So, you number one podcast listeners, enjoy it. You don't get these exclusives just anywhere. We're here for you, the people. So, thank you, Thomas. And we'll be sure in that episode description to link his mock draft and his top 50 board so you can use it as you watch the draft and enjoy yourself. Thank you again, Thomas.
Always happy to be here.